Smiley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Sunday, May 7th. So today we do have the moon in Sagittarius all day, really pushing us for a new truth, a new mission, a new purpose, a new direction, a new, bigger, greater, grander perspective, perception, and understanding of not only where it is that we're coming from, but where it is that we are setting our sights on trying to go. And of course, this Sag energy has us in a big mood, a big attitude. We're definitely aligning with building our confidence, being a little bit more optimistic and hopeful for the future. And of course, that fire energy from Sag is just trying to dry us up, kind of clean us off from those very deep, intense, dark emotions that we've been sorting through since the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio energy. So today we have Venus moving into Cancer energy. Of course, there is an astro forecast out that you can listen to where we go into a little bit more depth and detail on what Venus's time in Cancer is going to bring us. And there are 13 different aspects here today, so a very busy day in the cosmos. 10 of those involve the moon. The moon in Sag is going to square off, get into the boxing ring with Saturn, the Lord of Karma, ruling over structures, foundation, roles, responsibilities. And in this Pisces energy, we've been trying to deconstruct false illusions, old dreams, old belief systems in order to build something stronger in its place. And because this is a square, a little bit of a tension point and conflict, we really are going to struggle with the, I'm going to say, inspiring energy of wanting to be free from the moon in Sag versus the reality check, the weight, the heaviness that we feel in our soul space in order to get our shit together, to get our ducks in a row, and to actually start building something in our realities that not only look good, but feel good. There's definitely going to be tension there, and we can learn from tension where it is that changes need to be made. Venus, while still in the Gemini energy, the very last degrees of Gemini energy, which of course is a critical and crisis degree, applying a lot of intensity, a lot of pressure in the mental plane, really focused on the vast decisions and choices and paths and directions that we are contemplating and taking, and of course being very, very on the fence about a lot of these particular choice points. Venus is going to be making a positive interaction with Chiron, the wounded healer, who is in Aries energy, really kind of showing us where it is that we are shifting our identity, our persona, where we are growing and healing. And of course, that growth, that healing energy puts us in a different version of ourselves. So Venus kind of interacting with Chiron, first of all, is illuminating for us where it is that some of the choice points, some of the decisions that we've been on the fence about, where it is that we're leaning towards one over the other, because it means that we are recognizing where stagnancy is holding us back and blocking us from moving forward and making the kind of progress that we want to make. And we are identifying what it is that we need, our basic needs to feel happy, to have joy and pleasure kind of infiltrate our day-to-day lives, where it is that we need to build a safer, more secure, more stable structure in our lives. And of course, we identify where it is that we've been blocking ourselves from moving forward. We recognize the problem. We're coming up with an alternative, and therefore we are healing certain aspects of ourselves. We are growing exponentially, and we are attempting to anchor ourselves in this new identity. The moon in Sag will make an interaction with Mars. Mars, of course, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passions, our desires, even our anger. And Mars, of course, has been in this Cancer energy, making it very hard to identify what it is that we actually want for ourselves, what it is we actually need, what it is we actually desire, making it even harder to take action, going after in a straightforward pattern what it is that we actually want for ourselves. We're all over the place. We're highly emotional. We are very connected to the past and recognizing where it is that we're overly attached to the old version of ourselves, of our realities, of the choices and circumstances that the old version of ourselves have created. And this is why we haven't really been feeling inspired. We haven't been feeling that motivation, that determination. We're kind of stunted out in the growth and the progress that we're able to make. And so having the moon kind of interact with Mars in this way is I'm going to say a little bit conflicting. It's not a negative conflict. It's just kind of like we're realizing where the tension is. Of course, the moon in Sag wants us to think big, wants us to kind of, just dream the biggest dream possible and really kind of free ourselves from some of the limitations, some of the confines and restrictions that we would have identified under that full moon in Scorpio, really highlighting the darker aspects of ourselves. And Mars is just really kind of getting down to the nitty gritty in our emotional selves, in our intuitive selves, on our basic needs. We might have to push aside our wants and desires for another day. And if we could just focus on what it is that we have to kind of build in our lives in order to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves emotionally, and provide us with a proper healing space to actually grow and kind of move on from some of the attachments that we've identified, we would be in a much better place. But this back and forth, this ebb and flow is really doing nobody any favors at this point. We're kind of all over the place, and therefore, again, still very on the fence, still very indecisive. The moon will then interact with Mercury. Mercury, of course, ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information, communication, how it is that we express ourselves. He is retrograde, so all of this energy is internalized. We're kind of doing a reflection back, a review over what it is that we've already created. And in this Taurus energy, we're definitely looking at our physical realms where our self-worth is concerned, where the routines that we've built in our lives are concerned to take care of all the things, all the tasks, all the chores, where our relationships are concerned, where our finances are concerned, and lastly, where our long-term goals are concerned. Now, the moon is our heart space. Mercury is our head space. We're not necessarily on the same page here, but we are going to have an epiphany, an aha moment, an opportunity to recognize the distance, the gap between our heart and our head, where it is that we have to actively pursue trying to get these two on the same page before we can engage the physical body to take action to rearrange our physical realms to align with what it is that we have arrived at in our inner realms. And so what we're kind of seeing here is a change in perspective, a change in our beliefs on what is possible for us and what it is that, again, the Mercury retrograde energy is showing us is no longer in alignment with our long-term goals, with our vibration and frequency, with what it is that we want to build, what it is that we want to create. The moon in Sag will then make a positive interaction with the true node, the north node in Taurus energy. This is our soul path, our destiny point. It's the path that we need to be on in order to reach our soul's mission, our soul's potential. And so this being a positive interaction does kind of mean that we are starting to see from the observer mentality where there has been a whole lot of growth, where we are healing certain aspects of ourselves, where it is that we do have a new desire to push the boundaries of our comfort zone in order to actually free ourselves from the circumstances that we've created that we're no longer in alignment with, in order to actually enter into new foreign territory where, of course, we can explore this new mission, this new purpose, this new truth, this new path, this new direction. 10:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, money, will be moving out of the very divisive mental plane of Gemini energy into the heart space of Cancer energy, bringing up all the feels. I'm going to recommend that you listen to that astro forecast that I put out if you haven't already. If you have your Taurus season e-guide open and ready to capture the energies of this particular transition, I'm going to remind you to go ahead, jot down a couple notes about that, really follow the journal prompts and that particular e-guide as well. This is definitely going to set us up for some sensitivities, for some heart activations. Listen to the ascension forecast for this week on the physical symptoms that we can expect with these ever-changing energies. And basically, we are getting into a healing time, an inner child healing time. And all of these activations from the shadow realm aspect of ourselves that have been illuminated and activated and rising to the surface of our awareness through this eclipse season, through this retrograde season, now we are going to actively kind of pursue how it is that we're going to heal some of these particular wounds. And Venus in this Cancer energy is definitely going to help us do just that. The moon in Sag will be interacting with Jupiter, its ruler, who of course is in Aries energy. We get some fire on fire action here. Now, let me just say that the moon in Sag, typically speaking, has us kind of biting off more than we can chew. We're seeing the biggest version of the dream that is possible for us. And Jupiter, who is typically speaking our greatest cheerleader, our greatest hype girl, is bringing a lot of confidence, a lot of optimism, really kind of showing us where it is that we have the opportunity to push the boundaries of our comfort zone, to kind of go out into the world, to create new opportunities for ourselves, to make things happen instead of sitting back and waiting for things to happen. We have the ability to get hands-on and actually kind of create the type of path, the type of potential that we're looking to walk into. The moon is going to interact with Mercury again, this time a much better interaction, a much better, I'm going to say, conversation going on between the heart and the head. And this means that we earlier would have identified the distance, the gap between the two. We've been actively trying to work on bringing that gap closer together, finding a common middle ground. And this is indicating that somehow, some way, we've had an epiphany. We've had a shift in our mental plane. We've had a shift in our heart space. And suddenly the gap, the distance is being minimized, which means that our heart space and our head space are finally on the same page to a certain degree, in the same book. So that's a great start. Maybe even in the same chapter. That's also a plus. And maybe even on the same page. That would be even better. Venus is then going to make an interaction with Pluto. A couple things about this. First of all, this isn't the most positive interaction, so it is going to bring up a lot of the not so nice thoughts and feels. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we also want to remind ourselves that we kicked 2023 off with Venus and Pluto making a very, very interesting interaction that kind of set the tone for this year of 7, finding peace and harmony and balance in our lives, and also setting the tone on empowerment stories, really kind of looking at our fear, our pain, our trauma, and kind of rewriting that particular storyline in order to push us into a new level of power and authority in our lives. But every single time that Venus and Pluto are going to come together, regardless of whether it's a good interaction or not, this is kind of like a throwback to coming into 2023 under this particular influence. Now, this, again, is not the most favorable interaction that we could have Venus and Pluto make. And of course, back at the beginning of the year, we were in totally different signs, totally different energy with these two. But we have Venus, who is now in Cancer energy, and Pluto, who was retrograde in Aquarius energy. They're coming together and they are kind of unearthing a lot of fear. It's kind of unearthing a lot of doubts, a lot of insecurities, a lot of uncertainties, and it will put us in a situation and a position to have to kind of reevaluate, reassess, if you will. Again, we're plucking the re words from the retrograde that Pluto is in, doing a deep dive in our psyche here. We have to kind of reevaluate and reassess our personal relationships that are giving us a little bit of, I'm going to say, not so sure vibes. Now, this could manifest in a couple of ways. Maybe we're not so sure about the people that we are pouring time, energy, and effort and love and affections into. Maybe we aren't feeling as stable as we need in order to feel safe and secure in this particular relationship. Maybe we're not enjoying the people that we've chosen to kind of share our lives with. And a lot of this fear can come up with the fact that we know that we have to make a break with some particular social exchanges. But the fear of kind of losing those individuals, even though we know that we've outgrown them, even though we know that they're not really doing us any favors here, the fear of losing them is kind of putting us in a situation to hold on even tighter, when realistically speaking, we should be releasing our grip and detaching our energetic connection with them in order to create space and distance in some of the relationship dynamics that we're now identifying are no longer working for us. So it's definitely going to unearth a lot of that darkness. That's what Pluto does. Bring it into the heart space now that Venus is in Cancer energy. Bring it in. Now, this is going to make us a little bit more introverted. Again, listen to the astro forecast so that you can understand fully how this changes our affections, our interactions, our demeanor, if you will, in personal relationships. But we are pulling back. We're pulling away. And we are kind of creating a detachment, which is a ironic contradiction at the fact that we want closeness, we want intimacy, we want to attach ourselves, we want that surety, we want that certainty, but yet, Pluto brings up all the darkness, all those shadow realm aspects, which means that we're pushing people away when technically speaking, we should be pulling them closer. So this is definitely going to add to the confusion and the misunderstandings and miscommunications that are already taking place because of eclipse season and retrograde season. But we have a different perspective to look at our relationship dynamics from now that Venus is in Cancer, and we are kind of getting down to the nitty gritty of what it is that we need, not necessarily want or desire, but need from the people that we are choosing to keep in our lives. The moon will then semi-square, a little bit of a tangent point, with Pluto shortly after. So this is definitely going to put a little bit of a damper on some of the higher aspects that we've been able to reach and feel throughout the course of the day. We're really starting to question now whether or not our truth is the truth. Of course, everything is changing so quickly, and just in the moment of our certainty where we align with the new truth, where we align with the new understanding, perception, and perspective in life, then we start questioning everything. And of course, we have to question everything in order to find our truth. But Pluto kind of unearthing a lot of the darkness, a lot of the fears and doubts and insecurities is really putting us in a awkward situation because we were feeling really good about certain elements of our lives and sure about the path that we were going to be walking, and kind of, validating for us what it is that we know that we want to keep, what we want to kind of see stay the same. And now unearthing all of these kind of, I'm going to say, shadow realm elements of our control issues and our toxic patterns and behaviors. Well, now we're really questioning whether or not the truth, the mission, the purpose that we were aligned with just earlier on in the day even makes sense to us anymore every single time we kind of reveal darker parts of ourselves and have to go through the questioning period of the transformation that we are all going through because of eclipse season and because of retrograde season. Thankfully, the moon is going to make a positive interaction with Mars. So this is kind of going to bring us out of our funk a bit. It's going to kind of reinstate what we're sure of. It is going to remind us of the excitement that we have of certain aspects, projects, goals that we are looking to actually bring to life. It is going to kind of renew our faith, renew our inspiration, our motivation, kind of spiritually speaking, kick us in the butt and get us kind of aligned once again. Of course, that darkness that creeps in with Pluto's aspects really does have the ability just to knock the wind out of our sails. But this particular aspect is here to blow that wind back in and really kind of help us rise above and to kind of help us fixate on what it is that we know to be true, that we're not going to question, that we are very sure of. And again, pick ourselves up, dry ourselves off, and position ourselves in a state that is ready to take action when the universe actually supports us in doing so. The moon will then interact with the sun, and this is not the best interaction, but what it does is it provides us with an opportunity to see choices, decisions, a crossroads point, so to speak. The moon, typically speaking, although is our emotions, represents the past, because of course that's where we're coming from. The sun is shining a bright light on what it is that we need to do in the here and now in order to move forward. Well, the sun is in Taurus energy, which means that we should be having a vision, a dream on what it is that we want to build and create and bring to life in our realms in order to provide us with a strong, stable foundation in order for us to not only feel safe and secure in our physical realms and our physical circumstances, but to also have that foundation to build upon and moving forward. Well, as you may recall, this is not a typical Taurus season. That eclipse energy, that retrograde energy really threw a wrench in being able to build something for the future. Instead, we're kind of dismantling elements of the past in order for us to have the space to build something new in its place, but we're not necessarily in building mode as of yet. We're thinking about building, we're thinking about creating, but we're not actually taking action on that as of yet. So what we get here is an illumination of where it is that we're coming from, where it is that we're desiring to go, and then what we're left with is this present moment where we're stuck kind of in the middle of these two worlds, these two realms, these two versions of ourselves. And what we kind of get from this is an opportunity to see where it is that extra energy and effort is needed in order to kind of close the door on the past and really kind of focus our energies on what it is that we want to create in the future. The last thing that we got going on here today is the moon in Sag trining, which is a beautiful energy, with Chiron, the wounded healer, who is in this Aries energy. This speaks highly, very highly, that we have made some serious progress in our mind space, in our heart space here today. Keep in mind, we're not in a time of physical action. We're in a time of kind of thinking about the actions, but seeing the inner realm go through the processing, the recalibration, the realignment that we're currently in because of eclipse season and retrograde season. We're seeing new parts of us emerge. We're seeing the darker parts of us kind of get integrated, released, purged if need be, but we're really aligning with a new level, a new version of ourselves, with new wants and needs and desires. And that just speaks at how much we've been able to heal and how much we've been able to grow.